Hello everyone, so today I will talk about culture and organization. In this video, I will talk briefly about organizational culture and I will also explain about cultural differences in work-related values using Hofstede's cultural dimensions. Let's get started! Organizational culture is defined as the underlying belief, assumptions, values, and ways of interacting that contribute to the unique social and psychological environment of an organization. Organizational culture includes an organization's expectations, experiences, philosophy, as well as the values that guide member behavior and is expressed in member self-image, inner workings, interactions with the outside world, and future expectations. For cultural differences in work-related values, psychologist Dr. Geert Hofstede published his Cultural Dimensions model at the end of the 1970s based on a decade of research. Since then, it's become an internationally recognized standard for understanding cultural differences. Hofstede studied people who work for IBM in more than 50 countries. Initially, he identified 4 dimensions that could distinguish one culture from another. Later, he added 5th, which is power distance, uncertainty avoidance, individualism collectivism, masculinity femininity, and long versus short-term orientation. Okay, let's go through the first one, power distance. Power distance is a degree of inequality that exists and is accepted between people with and without power. A high power distance score indicates that a society accepts an unequal, hierarchical distribution of power and that people understand their place in the system. A low power distance score means that the power is shared and is widely dispersed and that society members do not accept situations where power is distributed unequally. So, this is the characteristics of high power distance and low power distance. Next, uncertainty avoidance. Uncertainty avoidance refers to describes how well people can cope with anxiety. In societies that score highly for uncertainty avoidance, people attempt to make life as predictable and controllable as possible. If they find that they can't control their own life, they may be tempted to stop trying. People in low uncertainty avoidance scoring countries are more relaxed, open, and inclusive. These are the characteristics of high and low uncertainty avoidance. Individualism collectivism is a strength of the ties that people have to others within their community. A high individualism score indicates weak interpersonal connection among those who are not part of a core family. Here, people take less responsibility for others' action and outcomes. In a collectivist society, however, people are supposed to be loyal to the group to which they belong, and in exchange, the group will defend their interests. The group itself is normally larger, and people take responsibility for one another's well-being. These are the characteristics of high and low individualism. Okay, the fourth one is masculinity femininity. Masculinity femininity is the distribution of roles between men and women. In masculine societies, the roles of men and women overlap less, and men are expected to behave assertively. In feminine societies, however, there is a great deal of overlap between male and female roles, and modesty is perceived as a virtue. And this is the characteristics of high masculinity and low masculinity. And the last one is long versus short-term orientation. This refers to the time horizon people in a society display. Countries with a long-term orientation tend to be pragmatic, modest, and more thrifty. In short-term oriented countries, people tend to place more emphasis on principles, consistencies, and truth, and are typically religious and nationalistic. And these are the characteristics of long-term orientation and short-term orientation. cultural norms play a large part in interpersonal relationship at work. When you grow up in a certain culture, you take the behavioral norms of your society for granted, and you don't have to think about your reactions, preferences, and feelings, provided that you don't deviate too much from the central tendency in your society. However, when you step into a foreign culture, things suddenly seem different and you don't want to cause offense. By using Hofstede's cultural dimensions as a starting point, you can evaluate your approach, your decisions, and your actions based on a general sense of how people in a particular society might think and react. Of course, everybody is unique and no society is uniform, but you can use this model to make the unknown less intimidating, avoid making mistakes, and to provide a much needed confidence boost when you are working in an unfamiliar country.